Hello and welcome to another episode of FS Uncut. I am your host, Coach Kojo from the Free Midfield Podcast. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this. It's going to be a great episode. You know why? Because we've got Ed Aarons, the wonderful, wonderful Ed Aarons. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
It's good. I'm so happy to have you on, and we've been excited to have you on as soon as we confirmed this. So we sat down. We said, "Oh, what does it as Aaron's done?" And the first thing we found is that you've got a book out about players. It's called Made in Africa, primarily about players that have come to the Premier League and made their mark in the Premier League from Africa. And you've mentioned players like Arthur Wharton, Christopher Rare, and Lucas Radebe. But yeah, can you go in further detail and let people know about you?
Yeah, I'm really delighted that you mentioned Christopher Ray there, because I've done a few interviews and stuff like that, about this here and there, and there's so many names that like I mentioned that are in the book, but he's one that like is really close to my heart. That story, because he was a really nice guy first of all when I did an interview with him, and really friendly and sort of really grateful that kind of someone remembered the impact that he had. So for a lot of people that and he wasn't here for very long, but a lot of people that don't remember him, he was the first African player to win the Premier League for Arsenal in 1998. And, he had a bit of a cameo role there, but, did score some important goals. And really, just as an example, he's a good example of some of the stories that people, some of the players that have come to England from Africa have had to go through. I mean, for instance, he left Liberia just when the Civil War was about to begin. He was on the last flight out of Monrovia Airport before it was destroyed by a missile, and had to bribe security guards to go and join his second cousin George Weah at Monaco, and having been recommended to Arsene Wenger, who's the manager. So it's incredible. He's got an incredible story, really, and my book is really just trying to tell a lot more of other people's stories that have some of the incredible journeys that they've had to go through to get to where they are today, or in the past, the pioneering role that they played.
Yes, and the book is an excellent read for anyone that hasn't read it yet or that didn't know about the book. You can find it on Amazon. I've already ordered my one because as soon as I saw that, I was like, yep, that's come straight to my house. One. I need to read that. So.
Cheers.
Getting that book out. Also in there, you have an interview with a certain Mr. Jurgen Klopp.
I do.
Yes, which he talks about the players. I think he signed 3 African players and he's broken the record each time in transfers. The amount spent on bringing on these players. So we're talking about your Manes and your Keitas. But can you give us a little bit of detail as into what he said within the interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he was really. I was really delighted to obviously speak to him and for him to find some time for me. And it was a few weeks after they won the European Cup. So, pretty busy time. And they were just coming back for pre-season, over a year ago now. But, he is obviously a subject that's quite close to his heart. His wife used to live in Africa. She was a teacher in Kenya. And I think she has big influence on him, like culturally. And he's, as you mentioned, he's signed the 3 players for African transfer records. And they've all had a major impact. Maybe not Keita yet, but I think he probably will in the long run. But yeah, I mean, Klopp talked about that. Some of the kind of mentioned what I said earlier, that African players have a special story because they've often come from like much more difficult backgrounds and have had to overcome massive obstacles to get there. Yeah. And it gives them this he thinks it gives them this winning mentality that it's kind of sometimes sets them apart from other competitors because they've had to come through so much to get there.
Yeah, that's true. And being African myself, my heroes are people like SCN, for an example. That he was an absolute baller here. So cannot wait to read this book.
Are you from? Are you of Ghanaian heritage then?
Yeah.
SCN is in the book. I spoke to him.
Oh, awesome.
And it was. The sort of the modern chapters. There's so many. There's so many players that have come in the recent years. I couldn't cover everyone, but I thought he was a good person to speak to about that Chelsea team. It had so many African players and obviously won the Champions League. And talking about Drogba and that era, he was a really interesting guy. Very, very quiet, but not arrogant and cocky like you can find some footballers are, very down to earth guy. And people of a certain age, he was a real superstar, back in the day.
Yeah, he was. And I don't want to give too much away because I want people to really go and get this book. We're gonna get into transfers. See, I actually planned a whole thing around certain players, and then out of nowhere, in the last 24 to 48 hours, Tottenham have blown United out of the water and have gone to sign Sergio Reguilon from Real Madrid, agreeing apparently a 30 million euros fee with the buyback clause and the first refusal clause both put into there. Can you give us a little bit of detail as to how Spurs managed to get that deal through? Because it looks like it's almost done.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of paying the money that was wanted. Real Madrid obviously have decided that he is available for transfer and said 30 million euros. And Man United were, he was very, very keen to go to Old Trafford. And but United were insistent that they wouldn't pay the money. So, and then in the last 24 hours, Tottenham came in and made the bid. I don't think they're paying the 30 million euros, but initially, but it's going to be, eventually we'll get up to that, I think. And, it looks like he will be a regular, he's going to go straight in the team, you'd have thought, at Tottenham. And yeah, I mean, it's just Tottenham's determination to get a transfer done. I think obviously they've been spurred on by the defeat in their first game. Yeah. But and Man United have lost. It looks like they've lost out, even though the player was, kind of quite keen to go there rather than anywhere else.
And how important is it, do you think, for Spurs to have these signings? I mean, if Bale does indeed go through as well, which would obviously be a loan because his wages along with the fee would be absolutely crazy. But if they were to get those two players, how much impact do you think it will be on the Spurs squad?
Yeah, I think it would be a big deal because obviously they need some strengthening desperately. But I still think that they'd be a good team. They'd be up there challenging, but there'd still be some problems there that aren't resolved. Particularly, I think in the central defence look quite weak of late. Although they have good players there, so it's just a matter of trying to find the right formation, I think. But yeah, I think Jose Mourinho is not going to go down without fighting, and he's clearly made it clear that he wants some players. But whether there's a question mark actually whether he wants Bale particularly. I mean, if you heard his comments today on Wednesday, he was just talking about I want a number 9 as a backup to Kane rather than he didn't say I don't want Bale. But, and he has tried to sign him before, as he said today as well. I'm sure he wouldn't turn him down if he arrived. But I think, maybe the priority possibly elsewhere. I don't know. But, yeah, obviously a player like Bale would be amazing for Spurs. And, everybody remembers him from back in a few years ago before he went to Real Madrid, how good he was. So it'd be quite exciting to see him back.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, in his last season in the Premier League, he was creating absolute magic, had a phenomenal season, obviously, which managed to get him to move to Real Madrid. But have they started looking at other strikers? I mean, in football, there's always rumours about this player and that player, but is there any sort of concrete news towards them actually looking at any certain central strikers, or are they still just Kane?
Yeah, they're looking. They're looking. I mean, Bas Dost is the latest name that's been going around. He's a bit of a beanpole striker, but there's been some quite funny names that have been linked with Spurs. It's because this is such a strange role, being the backup to like one of the best strikers around. Yeah. I think supposedly they've been offered Christian Benteke. I've been heard the other day, and Troy Deeney, players like that. And I think Mourinho does like that kind of striker. Actually, he does like a kind of someone who's good in the air, a good target man. But I think they should probably be looking to sign someone who can complement him, like he actually said the other day. I'm sure that he doesn't want someone who's just going to be coming on to when Kane's run out of steam a little bit. He wants someone who can play as well, start games as well.
Yeah. Now that we know that Spurs are close to signing Reguilon and potentially Bale as well, the club that has missed out on Reguilon is Manchester United. There's been a lot of news over the last couple of months about Sancho, about Reguilon, the only signing being Van der Beek so far. United fans are always applying pressure to yourself and other members of the press in terms of any football news or transfers. But how do you think this is a big blow, losing Sergio Reguilon to Spurs, or do you think it's something they can recover from?
It is a big blow. I think. I've always liked Luke Shaw. That I think he's got potential. So I mean, I know he's getting at the age where he should be fulfilling it, and he does sometimes.
Mm.
And he's good. He can be. He could be better. But I think the fact that they were looking to sign someone else, and he was really exciting, wasn't he? Anyone who watched the Europa League saw how this guy was just tearing down the left, constantly a real threat. He scored lots of goals, and I think it would have been a really good signing for them because. They don't have much options there, and adding a player like that would have been good. And I think, United fans, I can understand why they're getting a bit concerned because, they miss. It seems like they've missed out on him, and with Sancho, it's no progress as yet, and it's getting, the time is running out, and there's no doubt that Man United want to buy him, and that Borussia Dortmund are looking to do a deal, but they're insisting that they're not going to accept any less than the price. So you can understand with everybody else, particularly Chelsea, spending money. You can understand why United fans are a bit anxious.
Yeah. Is that United fans also said that the right wing and left back is positions that they really need to strengthen in. Do you echo those views, or do you think there's still a lot more to fix? I mean, they signed Donny van de Beek, centre midfielder. But is there more to fix, or do you feel like maybe with the squad they've currently got, they can still have the ambitions of finishing in the top four with no problem?
Well, definitely not with no problem. I mean, they've got a good squad, but I think they need to act. Like there's a few positions, especially. I mean, their glaring one for me is centre back. Really, I think just to give them a few more options, maybe because if they want to play a three, I mean, Bay's there as well, and as Lindelof and Maguire. But I think most Man United fans would like to see them buy another centre back. But like you say, the midfield is looking good, and up front, they've got a really good combination working. But I think Sancho was the one that was going to really mix it up a bit and raise the levels of the other three even more potentially, because they're all going to be competing to get in the team.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't. Well, we'll see. There's still a few weeks left.
Yeah. So talking of another Man United target who has links with Liverpool is Thiago Alcantara. Now I think everyone's been quoted as £30 million for the player. Apparently he's looking to make the move. I think Liverpool is primarily his first choice, but I think a lot of Liverpool fans are baffled at the fact that they've won a Champions League, they've won a Premier League. They didn't spend much money last year. Only Minamino, Adrian was a free, and they spent 12 million on a left back from Greece this summer. They find it quite baffling that they can't spend 30 million on Thiago. Do you feel like that's FSG playing it safe in terms of their finances, or do you feel like maybe it's a Wijnaldum situation where he has to go before they bring him in?
I think that might be key to it all, actually. Ronaldo, Barcelona are pretty keen on Wijnaldum. And I think that would be a big loss for Liverpool, because he's very underrated. I think, he always pops up with a good performance, and not talked about definitely as much as the other starting midfielders, Henderson and Fabinho normally.
Yeah.
But if the move is right, then I suppose, if he can't, it's hard to turn down and move to Barcelona, even in the state that they're in at the moment. But I don't know, Thiago would be an interesting one. But I think I think Klopp is, I mentioned him earlier, I think Klopp has got a lot of faith in Keita.
Right.
You see he's started the first game of the season, and he started quite a lot of games in pre-season. I think he may be they're looking to him to really come of age now in his third season, and really is, he's shown some signs that he could do that, but now is really the time to step up, hopefully.
Yeah. Do you think Thiago fits into that midfield? I mean, looking at the roles and how it seems like every player they have in the centre of midfield sort of fits the positions and the tactics perfectly. Looking at Thiago, I think he's quite different to everyone they have there. Do you think he could fit into that team quite comfortably?
Well, he's an absolutely brilliant player, so probably. But the way that he plays, they work so hard as a three, don't they? Those three in the middle.
Yeah. That
I don't know if he's. I mean, he works hard as well, but he's not the player he was when he was younger. He was a bit more like tricky, and he's a complete midfielder. So yeah, I think he could fit into the system, but it might take him a bit of time and a bit more running than he's used to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, Bayern, because they control so many games, and because of the contrast of styles, maybe he doesn't have to exert himself so much. Another player that's linked with a move away is Ryan Brewster. Now, a lot was made of him. He had a good loan spell at Swansea. Scored quite a lot of goals, but it looks like they're looking to let him go. What do you know the situation around that? Does he even want to leave?
It's kind of in the balance as far as I understand. I think, that we might actually hear something in the next couple of days or so, because it's either, I'd like to have thought that he could have been like really pushing to be the, first sub, like, or if anyone's missing of the three, like looking at him starting a game, obviously Origi's done that and Minamino's there. But Brewster, he's the same generation as Sancho and Foden and Hudson-Odoi. He's from that under-17 team.
Yeah.
And he's done all the right things. And I mean, they're quite keen for him to either go on loan or, maybe play quite a few games. But I think most likely is he will go on loan again, but to a Premier League club. And I know there's a lot of interest from loads of clubs. And I think pretty much everyone outside the top six are quite interested. Well, I know for a fact Palace definitely has been a long-standing one. Whether that's still there, given that they've signed Batshuayi now, I don't know. But I think they would. They would take him if they could, because he's very highly rated.
Palace. That's what their strike force would be. They've got Batshuayi. They've still got Benteke. Is Connor Wickham still there?
Yeah, he is. But yeah, Ayew as well.
Ayew, Georgia, of course.
Benteke, and Townsend. And they're looking at Ben Rama as well from Brentford, and Ezzy's just come in. Some quite exciting times for Palace. That's my local team. So.
Is that the team you support also?
It is, yeah.
Okay. All right. Then, let's go into Palace, because I'm quite excited to actually talk about Eze. Because he had obviously a good, wonderful time at QPR, showcased his talent so much last season. What do you think he brings to your team?
Well, I have seen him a couple of times, but I haven't seen him enough to know how he's going to fit in with Palace, because that's my concern, to be honest. Like whether he's going to be given a license to do what he can do under Roy Hodgson. Yeah. I have to respect Roy Hodgson a lot, because he's done an amazing job for Palace. Like, so considering, up until this summer, they hadn't spent any money for like nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's done really, really well. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he might bring. He's a ball carrier, who likes running at players and beating players. Not necessarily from the wing either. Like, he's better as in the central position.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if anybody saw that, but the penalty that he took, I know Palace lost to Bournemouth in that epic penalty shootout, but the penalty kind of summed up his confidence. He took a little stutter and then passed the ball, like not even that hard, into the corner. It was very gutsy penalty.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of shows you what kind of player he is.
And also the other player that everyone, I'm sure, is excited to see him link up with is a certain Mr. Wilfred Zaha, someone who's been linked with moves for God knows how long now. Are you surprised that he's still at the club? Considering the interest, well, I don't know what clubs have wanted him, but the interest that's been in him in the past couple of years.
I'm not surprised, no, because the equation that Palace have to look at with him is like, how much is he worth to us, not how much is he worth on the market, which is fair enough. And it's a similar thing with Jack Grealish. He's just signed a contract. United were interested, but I think, I don't know the exact details of that, but I imagine it was a similar sort of number that they were looking at, like 70, 80 million or something like that for Grealish. And, even if Palace got 80 million, which is what they wanted last year and almost got it, Everton offered like 70, then even then, like, it would be a big risk, because, maybe they're in a better position now to stay up without him. But, if they were to sell him tomorrow, say, then Palace would be one of the favourites to go down immediately.
Yeah.
Even if they reinvested that money, because it's going to take whoever they buy time to settle in. So, yeah, I can see why they don't. And I do feel sorry for him, because I think he's good enough to play at a high level. But I don't feel that sorry for him, because he signed a contract that's worth 120 grand a week, and he's, you know, incrementally been earning, you know, getting more and more every summer that there's interest. So it's a difficult situation. It kind of shows you like the way the power has moved on in the Premier League. Like the smaller clubs have got a bit more finances behind them now.
Yeah, and do you think that's a good thing? I mean, because surely like maybe back in the days where United, for example, were able to get like a Michael Carrick quite easily, and if you compare it to now, if Carrick played for Tottenham now, it wouldn't be so simple for United to go and spend 16 million on Carrick because of the times changing and Tottenham being a better team now. Do you see that as a strength for the Premier League, that everyone is now able to fight off interest from the bigger clubs?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, and I think Tottenham is an interesting one because Kane is in a position where, like, you know, the rumours have been going on for a bit now that he'd quite like to leave Tottenham. You'd never say that publicly, you know, but to win a trophy and like, but you know, how much would it cost to get Kane out of Tottenham? Just, and who can afford that? So yeah, it should be good. And like, you know, Premier League clubs are dominating, you know, signing players ahead of like European heavyweights. Like I remember a couple of years ago, Richarlison went to Watford, and Ajax were thought they'd had him sewn up. And so it just shows you the way things have gone. Like, you know, in the last few years, the money is really telling now. Like English clubs are just, you know, the top of the pile, aren't they, in terms of wages and, you know, and contracts.
Yeah. So finally on your club, Palace, what would you like for them to achieve this year? Because I spoke to a friend of mine who goes to a lot of Crystal Palace games, even though he's not a Palace fan. But I'm not gonna bait him out right now because I don't want to get me in trouble. But he does go to a lot of Palace games because he just lives around the corner from them. And he said that he feels like maybe the club doesn't feel like they want to push much forward. Do you feel like there's like a sort of like a lack of ambition to go further than, you know, sort of like safety in the Premier League? Or do you feel like, I mean, what would your ambition be for the club? I mean, this season, maybe.
Yeah,
going
it's
forward?
an interesting question. No, I just know that there is some ambition from the owner. He'd like to, you know, go as far as possible, and that was the whole reason that they got American investors in who own most of the club now, in an attempt to sort of like push it in that direction, as he didn't have the finances to do it himself. And I think there's a bit of a sort of way they've got to be careful because Palace are in like this unprecedented success, been in the top flight for like longer than ever before. And there's a new stand coming, and the training ground has got Academy 1 status, Category 1 status.
Oh right.
So which is great, and that's what they could do. That's what they're hoping to do, is tap into the local area, you know. And there's so many good players on the doorstep that they've missed out on over the years that they should hopefully be able to get to. So in theory, you know, with someone like Roy, maybe in his last season, I think this season could be a really good one if Zaha stays, maybe, or even if he doesn't. But you know, they've been quite ambitious in the market this year for once, and it's, you know, signing young players that I think fans have been waiting for years for Palace to sign, like some young potential, rather than, you know, we've had a lot of players in, like, you know, someone like Benteke who paid loads of money for him. And he's given his all in at times, but maybe it would have been better to spend all that money on some younger players.
And how much would you value Zaha personally?
Well, like I said, I think the equation comes down to the Premier League. But in terms of like raw numbers, how much is he worth? I don't know. I suppose about 50 million or something, 60 million maybe.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know. I've never really been a big fan of his. I still think he's a very good footballer though. But yeah, I would probably say about, because he's British as well, just going to another British club, say about 60. I think if a
he's Ivorian technically, but yeah.
No, technically, yeah.
Yeah, but I know he grew up in.
But he's got that hungry. He's got that hungry status. Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. No, it's a difficult one because I think maybe his value has dropped a lot in the last 2 years. Not because of, I mean, he had a crap year last year, but that was because his head was down. But age is the big thing, and adapting to the higher level. But I think there's one move that could happen for Zaha. If I was going to guess, I don't know how, you know, if they really want him enough, but I think there's a slot at a club that could afford him, not in the Premier League, but PSG.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think that there's definitely some interest there. And, you know, they're one of the few clubs that could afford him because he's on a lot of money. And you know, they could probably do with a lot of someone to back up the main guys there. So I don't know, but we'll see. But other than that, I mean, I can't see who's going to pay the money that Palace want and he could afford.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think he would actually do very well at PSG. I don't want to disrespect the guy, but if Choupo-Moting can make it at PSG, I'm pretty sure Zaha can make it at PSG.
Exactly.
Going away from South London, we're going straight to West London. We're going to the Blues, Chelsea. They've had quite frankly, in my opinion, an incredible summer window. But I mean, their win against Brighton, we only got to see two of their stars in in Havertz and Werner. How impressed are you by Chelsea in the transfer window this summer?
Very impressed in terms of the numbers that they got in and the names. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Ziyech. I've loved Ziyech for a few years. I've been watching him. So I do a lot of African football, obviously I cover tournaments and stuff like that. So I've known, watched him for a few years. So very excited to see how when he gets fit. And I haven't seen Havertz that many times, to be honest. So he looked pretty good the other night. And Werner was just really quick. Not just really quick, but he's very, that's the outstanding quality of his. So they've done very well. The only urgent thing would be sign a defender maybe, because that was the problem. I mean, Chilwell, good going forward, but concerns about him defensively. Yeah. And then James, good going forward. The same, maybe a few concerns. As for Liqueta, very, getting on a bit, but very experienced. Yeah. And then the centre backs, who are their first choice centre backs? That's a big question. I imagine that Thiago Silva's gonna be, play most weeks alongside someone. Yeah, maybe in a 3 as well. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised they didn't maybe go for somebody like Koulibaly, who I know is a lot of money, but they seem to be in the mood to spend that money, and he would be a leader for the central defence for the next 3 or 4 years at least. Yeah,
and what about the goalkeeper? Because again, against Brighton, he conceded the goal, which I believe he firmly could have done better in. He's had a tough time. He's a record goal signing as a goalkeeper, £72 million. But apparently, it's the world record. Yes, it is the world record. And already in one season, they're trying to get Edouard Mendy from Rennes. So, what do you think the future holds for him? Because it looks like Mendy will go through soon enough.
I think it's 2 seasons, isn't it?
Yes.
Kepa's been. Yeah. But yeah, Mendy's gonna. I think it's almost agreed. He's really interesting as well. He's Senegal international. He was unemployed a couple of years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Yeah, he was messed about by an agent who, he had to leave his club, and he signed on in France for a year, and but has worked his way back up and is doing really well for Rennes. I think the way that Kepa has been going, there's no way he can be looking to start. He looks shot of confidence, and he should just stay on his line. I was screaming out of the telly the other day. I'm not a Chelsea fan, but it's just obvious if you're a keeper and you're struggling with that, I think you have to try and just let your defenders deal with it.
Yeah. Now, because Chelsea have spent so much money, immediately, of course, everyone looks at them and says, you're not going to spend that much money without looking to be in a title race. But of course, just like United and then everyone else in the league, they finished miles behind City, who finished miles behind Liverpool. Do you think they have the potential to potentially mount a challenge this season, or at least close the gap a lot more?
They do have the potential. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think my initial reaction to Chelsea is that it's going to be good, but not quite good enough, because it's going to take a bit of time to find their best combination and for people to settle in. But I think, they look like they're the obvious third best team, behind the other two. Yeah. But I don't think it's quite as simple as that. And I think the defensive problems are gonna mount for them still, because unless they sign another person, Silva's not the player he was a few years ago. I think that's still going to be an issue. I think I heard a stat yesterday that they conceded the second most goals they've ever conceded in the Premier League last season. So
yeah, there's a ridiculous amount of goals.
That is that's a big thing. That's you don't win titles by conceding that many goals. So I can't see that changing overnight. So yeah, I think they're going to be similar position to this season, despite all that money.
Potentially, that's true. You think Mendy could improve the goals conceded situation? Because
yeah, but I think so. It's something like 45 last season. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but you need to be like, getting it down to like mid-30s maybe. But to win the league, it needs to be in the 20s really, unless you're like scoring lots of goals. Of course, yeah. So yeah, I think they can get closer, but I don't think that they will be in it. Yeah, I think they'll be closer to the top two. I don't think Liverpool and Man City will be as dominant this season. Right. But I think some of the other teams have improved a bit. So I think they'll be a bit closer, but yeah, not quite enough. Yeah, maybe the season after that could be the key one for Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, as a United fan, I hope we be the ones that catch up, but that's probably not going to happen. Everton are a club who has surprised a lot of people with their free midfield signings. I think Doucouré was one that was linked a long time ago. Alan and James Rodriguez from Real Madrid. How surprised? Because I was absolutely gobsmacked. Were you surprised by these deals coming through? I know Ancelotti's the manager, but
not really surprised, because I knew that they were looking into it, and he was an obvious deal to be done for some club, because like Bale with Spurs, if they can manage to get him, it'd be amazing. But like James was just sitting there not playing, and still only 29. Got a lot to offer, and was willing to move on from a big contract. So that's a great bit of business. I'm surprised there wasn't many other clubs in there for him. And Ancelotti's just gone for two players that he knows really, really quite well, having had Alan obviously at Napoli, and Doucouré. I've always been a big fan of him. They got him for a good price as well, because he was quoted for big money. Like a couple of years ago, it was always Paris Saint-Germain 40 million kind of fees, but obviously he got relegated. Watford got relegated, and they picked up a good one there, I think. So yeah, it's exciting for Everton fans.
Yeah. And what do you think it does for Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin? Because they had decent goal-scoring seasons last year, especially Calvert-Lewin, who's now starting to find his own, in my opinion, in the Premier League. Do you think they can? The creativity around them, how much do you think they can benefit from this?
Oh, loads. I think, Richarlison's got a real talent, and Calvert-Lewin has grown into his role there. And he's really leading the attack well. I think they're going to be decent. I think they're just maybe a concern with them about at the back, but I think they could really they could do pretty well. But I'd say maybe 7th will be quite a good season for Everton to start off with, and maybe looking to try and build on it for next year.
Yeah. Do you think they could push on potentially for maybe a 5th place?
Yeah, you never know, but I just think there's a lot of competition in there. Like, where you've got to think about Wolves as well. Yes. It's going to be good this season. No Europe, and then Leicester. I don't think they'll be as good as last season, but it should be top 8 at least. And then Arsenal, who we haven't mentioned.
They're coming.
We'll get onto them. But yeah, I think there's a few contenders. It's going to be pretty tough.
Well, let's go straight on to Arsenal then, because they have also signed quite well this summer for them. They feel like Gabriel's a good signing. Obviously, Saliba's come in back from his loan at Saint-Étienne. Willian is another signing. Chelsea fans will tell you different. They don't particularly like him too much. What do you think of Arsenal's summer so far?
Yeah, that's really good. We couldn't have gone any better, to be honest. Apart from maybe selling Ozil, getting him off the wage bill. Yeah. Because that's just looks like it's just going to end with him sitting out his contract. But yeah, to get Aubameyang signing a new contract, which looked in doubt for a bit, and there was some interest in him, but the money, again, just the money that would have taken to get him. Yeah, was too much. So yeah, it's getting him to sign Gabriel looks like a really good addition, and Willian as well is like he's got a lot to give still, I think, and he will help try and bring through some of the younger players. So yeah, but the best thing about Arsenal at the moment is obviously Arteta is just just been amazing. I think most fans would love to have him as their manager. I think there's not many clubs, maybe City and Liverpool, the only ones, or maybe some Chelsea fans would disagree with me, but the impression that he's had as a young manager is quite incredible. Actually, it's been really impressive.
And they've changed a lot within the club, the infrastructure, the critically acclaimed Don Raul, as they love to call him at Arsenal. Raul saying he's left the club. Looks like Edu and Arteta are now in charge of transfers more. There a lot of clubs like to take the director of football approach, and maybe the manager, and they work together, but they don't really get involved in negotiations. Whereas it seems like Arteta is getting a lot more involved in the transfers. Do you think that's a positive for him, just because he is the manager, so he knows what kind of?
Yeah, I think they should. Yeah, I mean, they should really be heavily involved in that. I think they're the ones who are going to have to pick them and tell them what to do at the weekend. Yeah, so it's good. I mean, they have like a good network there with Arsenal. They've got some good links around Europe, so I think they're making that pay. But the thing is about Arsenal and Arteta, you've got to say, is that the board had to act. They had to back him because otherwise he's going to get snapped up by another club. He is. I mean, every club must be on the list of as a potential future manager. Yeah, because just of how well he started off.
Yeah, and well, Arsenal fans do want one of two players. I think it's Partey or Houssem Aouar from Lyon. Do you think it's possible for them to get any one of those players, considering the fees?
Yeah, well, yeah, Partey is 50 million or nothing euros, and Aouar, I like saying his name, is I don't know, but he's an amazing player. I think he's wonderful. I think they should try and everything they can to get him. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I imagine quite a lot, because of Lyon are very good at that sort of negotiations. But yeah, they definitely. I mean, this is the Torreira thing. We wrote this story a couple of days ago. Torreira, they want to sell him, but not happy. They would accept a loan just to kind of free up a bit of finance for one new midfielder. So yeah, let's look at. I mean, that might be one. These sort of things get done like late. I think we're heading into that territory now. We've kind of had all the pre-season transfers. Now we're heading into like the last-minute dash, like you get in the normal transfer windows.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about Torreira as well, because I am aware that you guys spoke about him. Are there any suitors that are seriously impressed by him and want to bring him to their club potentially? If there's a deal there.
It's Torino and Fiorentina. The one he'd quite like to go back to Italy, because he did really well there with I think Sampdoria, wasn't it? The Arsenal signed him from. Yeah. It's a shame, because everyone was very excited about it when he joined. A lot of people saying he was going to be like the Arsenal's Kante.
Yeah, but, I remember that.
It's not quite worked out like that. I think he's still, because he was really good at the World Cup, seem to remember. But yeah, it's not worked out. It's just one of those things, I suppose. It's difficult though when you come and a manager buys you and then a new manager comes in.
And what do you think about the sale of Emiliano Martinez?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised about that actually, because he did really well for Arsenal. I thought he might start the season, but I think again that might be connected. Really, it's a kind of a way to try and raise some funds to buy a midfielder. Because they haven't, that's the problem with Arsenal as well. They don't have endless funds, like some clubs, like the owners really don't give them a bit of a budget. So it's a matter of moving people around, I think.
Okay.
It's a shame, because he was really good. I mean, they must have taken that decision with a heavy heart, because it was really close between who was better keeper. I think Leno is really good as well, but. Yeah, Martinez did great. It's a bit hard done by to be, sold, but Villa's gained.
Yeah, Villa's gained indeed. And another person they've gained, as you mentioned earlier on, is Jack Grealish. Now, a lot of people raised eyebrows at this, because their idea is obviously he's 25 and he's still got much more of a chance to move to a bigger club in probably a year or two, if not this summer. But he signed a 5-year contract at Villa. I mean, Villa must be happy, but do you think that's a good move for Grealish, or? Yeah,
well, yes. I mean, he's going to earn amazing money there. It's the same dynamic as Zaha. I mean, to the fact, although obviously Zaha went away when he was younger, and Grealish started off in the Premier League and went down to the Championship and has come back up with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe he's, priced himself out of ever leaving now. I don't know. Depends. I mean, the fact that he's got in the England squad, though, I think that probably made a big difference to him. I know he was a late call-up. It showed him that he could get in the England squad while being at Villa, which is, I think, quite important to him. So that's probably why that helps persuade him. Also, spending a lot of money on Watkins. He looks really, a lot of clubs are in for him. I think he could do really well in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I like players who've come up from the lower leagues all the way to the Premier League. It's great to see that.
Yes, of course, yeah. Especially with your homegrown club, if you're able to, survive in the Premier League with the club that you came up and you love and you adore from the jump, it is special. And there aren't many players that are loyal to their clubs in football these days. So it is something that I do enjoy. I must admit, as a United fan, I have many players that were loyal through the class of '92 and so on. So I do appreciate his loyalty, even though I would have liked to have him at my club, but it is what it is. One more club I want to speak about. Actually, I want to speak about two more. Leeds United. 16 years away from the Premier League. Came back with a bang. It was a loss, but they damn well gave Liverpool one hell of a game. How impressed were you by that performance?
Yeah, it was really good. Kind of what everybody expected. I think that, everybody expected them to do well, but maybe not that well because they were really, it was a real eye-opener. It was the best game we've seen for ages. And Bielsa's going to really light up the Premier League. You can imagine a lot of clubs are going to drop points against them this season. They're really going to. I think I did my predictions for every year. The people at the Guardian, we do our predictions on that, and I said that they'd be in the top 10. Something like that. So it's a bold one. We'll see. Yeah. I think I also had Palace quite low just because of the superstitious thing.
Right. do you think they could? So that means you could probably think that they potentially could have that Wolves effect. That Wolves came in and they suddenly just went past a load of clubs, went straight into the top 10. You think it could be a similar?
Yeah. Well, I think a big thing about Leeds is also, as well as Bielsa, and it doesn't really get talked about much because they haven't really spent much money yet. Although they have, Rodrigo was a sign that they have got the money. They have got some money behind them, and he's quite ambitious, the owner.
Yeah.
And he's got good contacts in football around Europe. So they've got some money to back them, I think. So I think, not as much as obviously top 6 clubs, but they have some cash which is going to help them, progress as well.
Do you have any idea on this news about them potentially trying to sign Rodrigo De Paul from Udinese?
Yeah, I think that's still ongoing. And there's a defender, I've forgotten his name now, but from Zagreb, who they've been trying to, I've forgotten his name, but he's a young defender who they're going to get as well. And they're both, sort of in the region of £20 million players. Okay. So, yeah, it just shows you that, they're serious.
They are serious. They are. And I would be remiss not to talk about a club that is being spoken about in a crazy amount of time right now. West Ham United. Club that is in turmoil by the fans. They want the owners out. They've wanted Sullivan and Brady out for a long time now. There's been rumours as to them being or rejecting bids from American potential owners to take over the club. What do you make of this whole situation at West Ham? Do you think it's as bad as the fans feel it is, or you look at it and think, well, you still got a good squad, which I think is true, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of Groundhog Day for them, isn't it? Because they're always in the same situation. I think the problem there is that they've spent too much on big wages for players that are demotivated, and now it's difficult to get out of that when you're in that cycle because you've got like someone like Felipe Anderson, who's like undoubtable talent, but he's not motivated, and it's a big issue because no one wants to buy him for the money that and no one wants to take his wages on. So what do you do? It's really difficult. And Moyes, I have a bit of sympathy for him because he showed that he deserved the job. Like he should have been given a couple of years ago. And now he's starting the season off in this environment, and they've got 6 really tough games coming up, and they've lost their first game, and the club captain's speaking out on social media and stuff, and it's a real mess. But I think the problem is with the takeover is apparently that they would have to pay back some of the a fee to the stadium authority, but before 2023, I think.
Right.
So I think that's partly why they're quite. I mean, the long-term plan has always been, I think, for them to sell the club on, a big profit, but like not just yet. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's quite sad really, because there was all these promises when they left Upton Park and going to the London Stadium, but it's just not really worked out. They've tried in a way, but just not spent the money correctly. Just constant regime change. It's not helping.
Yeah, and well, to be fair, I had no issue with Mark Noble stating how he felt on Twitter, because he is the leader of the club, especially the players, and I'm sure he just echoed a lot of the feelings in the dressing room right now. He just said it out loud. Over Grady Diagana, do you think that sale is worth the noise that they're making, or I mean, what's your opinion on the player himself?
I mean, they obviously know a lot more about him than me, but I've seen a bit of him. I mean, he looks really talented, and it's a shame that someone that they've produced. Again, that's a club with a massive, on their doorstep. They've got so many players there that they don't. When was the last time you saw a player that West Ham produced in their first team? Yeah. Declan Rice got him from Chelsea. There's not enough. They should be trying to concentrate on that, really. I think, and all the money that's been wasted on transfers, there's a good opportunity for them to bring through some players and get their academy in shape. It's a shame, but these things hopefully will get sorted out from their point of view, because it's looking tough for them already.
Yeah, and they've sold him to a relegation rival in West Brom as well. So I'm sure that adds to the anxiety of the fans as well, because they feel like this could really be the season where they go down. And of course, if you're in a 60,000 seater stadium, in the heart of London, you do not want to be playing that stadium in the Championship. With all due respect to the Championship, which is a great league, but that's not what. Well,
you fear for them just because of the wages. Like if they got relegated, it would be a disaster. I don't know what any sort of relegation release clause, but there's just so many players on big money there. I mean, it's a similar thing where Palace are also in that kind of boat as well. Like they're spending a lot on wages, and if they did go down, it would be quite disastrous in a way. But I imagine they've got a few release clause, relegation clauses and things like that. But I'm sure West Ham have as well, but maybe not for someone like Felipe Anderson or Sebastian Haller, who's like, £50 million striker. So, yeah.
Okay, so just finish off. Of course, you know so much about African football, but of course, your book relating to the Premier League, I want to ask you your 3 favorite African players to ever play in the Premier League and why.
Okay, Premier League. So it has to be Peter Unlove.
Okay.
Yeah, the original, because he was the original, and he kind of for people who don't know, he was from Zimbabwe, and he played for Coventry when Coventry were in the Premier League, and they were in there every season. And he was just a really exciting player, and he, as a pioneer, really, I think, a very important person.
Yeah.
Then it's really tricky to do 3, but I used to live in South Africa for 2 years.
Okay.
And so I've always had a big soft spot for Lucas Radebe.
Right.
And he was a brilliant leader as well. I think he was quite good for, the sort of stereotype of an African player being like a quick or tricky winger, kind of, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Lucas, exactly that. Pace and power. Yeah. So Lucas just, blew that out of the water with his leadership abilities, and just he was just an amazing defender and led by example.
Yeah.
And I think, he just was superb for a long time as well. And absolute legend. And then in the modern era, it's tough because I like Salah a lot as well, but I always kind of plump for, personally, I like Mane a lot. He's just an unbelievable player. And, talking about somebody who's had a good story, like in their background, like he's come from like one of the most remote places in Africa to become one of the best players in the world. So,
yeah,
brilliant, and good luck to them. See, hopefully one of them can win the Ballon d'Or. That's why I'd absolutely love that. That's kind of where the book ends. Is like, why has there only been one African player who's won it? George Weah, and none in the top 3.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
and that's kind of looking to the future. I think there will be, maybe Ismaila Sarr one day. I don't know, somebody like that.
Yeah, potentially.
Surprised no one's picked him up actually as yet, but they will do. And whoever gets him they won't be sorry because he's very good player.
Is anyone interested in him?
Well, I know Palace are, but only as a replacement for Zaha if he goes. Okay. Liverpool, interested.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think anyone's moving for him yet. I mean, it looks like he's going to start off in the Championship because Watford want 40 million.
Oh, goodness, that's a big fee.
Yeah, but you've got to remember this guy scored 2 goals against Liverpool in the only game they lost. Sorry, not the only game. Before the restart, the only game they lost in the Premier League. So yeah, I know that's not worth 40 million, but he's a very talented player. I think he's going to be at the very top soon enough.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think he's got the potential to get to the very top. So hopefully he reaches there. Ed, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Nice one. Thanks very much. It's been enjoyable.
I love that. Thank you for all your insight into the transfers. The book, again, I'm going to say this one more time, guys. Made in Africa. Make sure you get that book. I know it's going to be an incredible book. I've already bought it. I ain't got any doubts about that. And you want to plug your socials for us as well?
It's really just Twitter, to be honest. That's all. Just find me on Twitter, Ed_Aarons. Yeah, look me up. I'm not verified, but it is me.
No worries.
Nice one.
No, thank you for coming on. And I am Coach Kojo again from the Free Midfield Podcast, hosting for Footy Says. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.